Um,
we are recording.
We are recording? Okay, great. Thank you,
Thank
Chanel.
you so much.
Okay, so we, as many of you know, waited for a very long time for the Oregon Health Authority to release the guidance for overnight camps. And we have finally received it. We received it a couple of weeks ago and have now created our official operations that is now we're going to be talking about here and will also be on our website. And following this meeting, we're also going to send out an email with the information or links to the information so you can find everything we're discussing in more detail and written out. In addition to the Oregon Health Authority, the CDC and the American Camp Association have very comprehensive lists of guidance and recommendations that are also included here. So there are a lot of people and a lot of research has gone into how we can operate camps. So we know that multiple layers of protection are necessary to best mitigate COVID-19 on camp. Using all of these layers at the same time is what we know and have learned will help to mitigate any spread of COVID-19. So if you have been on our previous town hall meetings or have looked through our previous COVID-19 protocols at all, you'll notice that this is similar to what we have been predicting all year and talking about. We now just have the specifics for some of those things that we were still considering. So this summer, the combination of these protocols will be used. They are the pre-camp screening, frequent and thorough sanitizing, keeping in stable groups, keeping cohorts, which are the groups physically distant from each other, using masks around other cohorts, using pre-camp and during camp testing, and the recent addition to require staff to be vaccinated where it is readily available for them. So we're going to start with testing. We will use testing as a preliminary way to prevent COVID-19 positive cases from entering camp. We will be asking families for proof of a negative PCR test taken 3 days prior to camp. There will be a form on CampMinder for you to upload these results. This means that families will be responsible to get their pre-camp COVID test. BB Camp is going to send out an information sheet about how to get your camper tested if this isn't a process that you are already familiar with. Once your camper is at BB Camp for a few days, we will have another round of COVID PCR testing. We also will have COVID tests as needed. So this would only occur if there was a camper showing COVID-19 symptoms, and we would give them a rapid antigen test. These are tests that we are working with a local lab to be able to have these tests as needed so we can so that we can continue to monitor COVID-19 at camp. The next thing to talk about is transportation. So this is one that was a big question mark for a while. And just as a reminder, the details about this are listed on our parent manual online. And so if you need this information again, you'll be able to find it. We are going to provide transportation by bus from the Portland and Seattle areas, in addition to one bus from Southern Oregon for just our second session. So starting at the end of July. Families can also drop off campers at camp by car or any vehicle. And for those flying in, we will be providing transportation to camp from the airport. We are following specific transportation guidance, which means for those taking the bus, in order to limit the amount of people at a bus stop, we're going to have families sign up for a specific bus time. So we're going to have a range of bus times, and we'll have one bus leaving at a time. Campers will sit one camper to a seat, and siblings will sit together. So there will be a staff member there at a bus stop to welcome the campers onto the bus, and a staff member who will be riding with the campers to camp. So if you are dropping off your camper at camp by car, you will also have a sign up on the transportation form, and you'll give us the specific time that you'll be dropping off as well. If you are arriving by airplane, you will enter your camper's flight information in the transportation form, and a BB Camp staff member will be there to meet them at the gate and will take them to the vehicle that will then take them to camp. At all of the locations, a staff member will be conducting a pre-camp screening. So this is, if you were at one of our day camps last year, it's similar to that. This is going to include questions about any symptoms, a temperature check, medication drop-off for overnight camp, and our typical lice check. At all bus locations and drop-off locations, we're going to have the parents stay in the car for the duration of the drop-off in order to minimize the amount of individuals walking around. So this will all be entered into a transportation form that is on your Camp in Touch account. The next one is cohorting, distancing, and masking. This really is the one that hasn't changed much at all. The cohorting means that campers will be in groups, and this will be made up of their cabin mates and their counselors. These groups will operate like a household would. In fact, many of the ACA recommendations, they refer to the cohorts as households, so it's easy to kind of picture what that means. This is because within the cabin, campers will be using shared spaces, sleeping in the same room, and will be permitted to be unmasked around each other. The cohorts of campers will be scheduled to do activities with a few other cabins in their age groups, and those will be considered a pod. The campers will follow physical distancing guidelines when they are participating in activities within their pods, because these campers are not in their cohort or household. So masking and distancing from other cohorts really ensures that if there was a case in a group, that it stays contained within that group. So that's the reason for that. So those were actually the big pieces of the COVID-19 mitigating protocols. And now a big question for many is what happens if an individual at camp does present with symptoms. If a camper develops any symptoms, we will start by having them take a rapid antigen COVID test. This test gives results within 15 minutes. If there is a positive case that comes from the test, the camper will be isolated, and a parent or guardian will need to pick them up from camp. We'll ask them to do that within the same day or within 24 hours. While the camper is waiting to be picked up, there will be a designated staff member, a few staff members caring for them. However, they will be spending most of their time on their own, so this is why we need them to be picked up so that we don't have any camper in isolation for multiple days at camp. In this event of a positive case, we also will begin the process of testing others in the cabin, monitoring for symptoms, and will communicate with parents and guardians within that group. So those of you who have been to town hall meetings before know that I like to always cover kind of the emphasis on camp spirit, especially before we get into questions. Ruach is the word for spirit in Hebrew, and at camp,
Bet you have muted yourself, unfortunately. You're muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now.
Great, yeah, so I went through most of our mitigating protocols, and now I just want to emphasize camp spirit, which we call Ruach at camp. It's really important for us to remember why we're doing this, and to remember that even with these new protocols in place, camp is still a magical place, and it's still a place where our campers are going to leave having gained independence and confidence and community and more. And BB Camp's core values, they always guide our programs, in addition to this new set of guidance. And our core values of community and friendship and peace, courage and joy, and repairing the world and tradition, all of these values are going to remain present with us. We'll still celebrate camp traditions with Shabbat and campfires, and our activity areas, aquatics and arts and drama. It's all going to be there, just a little modified. And most importantly, the cabin connections. This is the heart of camp, meaningful connections with peers that happens in a camp setting, and really the role modeling that occurs with counselors and campers. So those all continue to be strong. I really like to emphasize this because it's the reason we're here and the reason we continue to do this work. And please make sure that when you are talking to your kids about camp, that you also remember to focus on that wonderful experience that they're going to have, and focus on those elements that are going to create this amazing camp experience that we are so looking forward to. That is the basic, the additions that we've had and the kind of overview of our camp guidance. Coming up, we have our camp forms that are going to be due. You can see these in your Camp in Touch accounts. These include a health history form, you have a transportation form and a few others. So please give us as much information as possible. When you include a lot of information on your health history form, it just helps us get to know your camper a little bit before the start of camp and to understand their needs. So we thank you in advance for filling out these forms before the deadline on June 1st. We're also looking forward to our spring family camp in a couple of weeks. I know that a few people here are attending that. And also keep your eyes open for information about our hybrid Shabbat in the Park event in early June. And it will be hybrid so that those who can't make it in person can participate too. Coinciding with this town hall meeting, like I said before, we have updated our written version of all these protocols that I just went through and touched on. We also will have our online parent manual available. And this has so much information for you. It has everything about communication during camp and packing guides and behavior policies, kind of everything you need to know. And we're happy to point you in the right direction for those as well. So we will send out an email following this meeting to remind you how to find this information and how to access your camp forms with all of this. And again, Nicole Danberg, our new administrative coordinator, will be the one to be able to help you if you're having trouble with any of those. So that's all the explanations I have. If you have questions, of course, now is the time, and this is kind of the Q&A town hall part where you can, feel free to ask questions in the chat to Chanel, and also feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question when we get through the chat questions.
All right, so we've had a great amount of questions coming in, and it looks like they keep on coming. So that I'm going to start sending them your way. So first, Erica wanted you to reiterate how many campers will be in a cabin. I think you talked about pods and grouping, but maybe not specifically per cabin.
Yeah, so our cabins can have up to 20 campers, and most cabins are around 12 to 16 campers.
Awesome, thank you. Andy would like some information on staff protocols when it comes to COVID, specifically surrounding testing and leaving for days and nights off.
So we just recently, our board members passed a policy that we are going to be requiring every staff member on camp to be vaccinated. Camp staff will go through a similar testing protocol, and because they're vaccinated, they will be following the CDC and OHA guidance for vaccinated individuals. And if that does change at the time of camp, they'll still be following whatever the current guidance is for vaccinated individuals.
Great, thank you. Jennifer would like to know, are there specific types of masks that we are going to be asking our campers and staff to wear?
We say a face mask or a face shield. We also have, if there is a camper who for some reason cannot wear a typical face mask, to definitely get in contact with us so we can talk with you about your specific need.
And so the CDC is recommending that kids still wear double layered masks. So those are the kinds that we're preferring at this point.
All right, so we have a question about baby surfs, and I'm actually just going to read it straight from the question so I get this right. Josh is curious about the special programs like the surfing program. If someone signs up for that, will that mean they're in a different household, or will kids in those programs be mixed with the kids who are not in those programs within the household?
Great. So for this specialty program like BB Surfs, it's created so that those in it are in a similar pod. So they won't become a cohort and they won't become a household. They'll have their own cohorts and household. But when they do a BB Surfs activity, they will be within a pod. So when they are together, they will have masks on. But the great thing about surfing is it actually is a program. It's on the beach and there's a lot of space to spread out. when you are out in the ocean, you also cannot be within 6 feet of someone else. So it is actually a program that we didn't have to, one of the programs that we didn't have to modify much for the BB surfs.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Will any of the rules regarding masks in pods be updated if kids are able to become vaccinated?
So at this time, for kids getting vaccinated, because it's not going to be, unfortunately, readily available yet, we aren't going to be able to change those. Of course, we continue to stay up to date with all of the protocols, and I imagine if there was a case that that it was completely readily available, that might change. But at this time, since it isn't approved for us yet, and it isn't feasible that all of our campers would be able to get it before camp, that's not going to change our COVID-19 protocols.
Awesome. Thank you. Does BB Camp send out cabin lists to parents prior to camp starting?
We do not, but feel free to get in contact with me and anyone who has given permission to be on a roster in their camp registration. We can give you the list of campers.
Awesome. So after the 72-hour test prior to camp, will families be asked to quarantine until the camper leaves for camp?
We're not requiring a quarantine. We ask that families follow the current guidance in their locations and areas, and it would be and we would recommend that they do, but we cannot require it. Great.
Okay, very, very important. Will there still be singing and song sessions?
There will, there will, and that's the part that is so important. We'll have so much singing and song sessions. They're just going to be doing it from porch to porch and hearing each other that way, rather than all jumbled together in a dining hall. And that's an example. It might not always be on their porches, but it will be in different spaces outdoors.
Awesome. We have a couple questions kind of more about the mask policy. We have a few about if they will be worn, what the mask policy is during water sports, and just in general, kind of when campers will and will not be wearing masks throughout the day.
Yeah, so within their household groups, the cabin, that's who campers typically spend most of their time with at camp anyways. That's when they will not be masking. And specifically for water sports, those will be scheduled, and they typically have been scheduled for just a cabin together so that they can easily have their masks off, because we're not going to go swimming with our masks on. So that's going to be a cabin group together. And I know there is this question about, can they be unmasked later when we know there's no COVID-19 on camp. And the guidance does not allow for that because we really can't be sure that there isn't a case of COVID-19. And because of that, we want to keep it separated and keep it contained if it did occur on camp. In terms of outdoors, we're going to do the most we can to keep our outdoor activities and distance activities so that kids are not wearing masks for most of the day. Just when they are combining with other cohorts in their pods, that's when we're going to be masking.
Right. Will campers from different cabins and households be able to be commingle during the day if they are siblings outside of camp?
So we've talked a little bit about siblings. So it's going to be the same protocols that's when you're with someone outside your cohort, you'll need to be masking and distancing. And so that's the same with siblings. We're going to be scheduling, camper schedules will not overlap that much, but we know that we're going to have siblings who want to see each other. So our counselors are going to help to set that up. So if there are siblings on camp and a sibling is wanting to see another one, we're going to be able to make that happen. We're going to have some times in the day where we're going to figure out where it makes sense for an older kid, maybe in a younger unit camper, to come together, and we'll just stay masked and distanced there too.
Awesome. Can you, Beth, speak a little bit about how meal times are looking and what our protocols are going to be for that?
Yeah, so really it's consistent with everything else. So because when we're eating, we are not having masks, campers will be eating within their groups, and they will be at least 6 feet apart from any other group that is also eating, since we'll have our masks off at that time.
Mm-hmm. We have another question about Shabbat, but I'm assuming that answer kind of goes for that as well. Do you have anything to add specifically about what Shabbat will look like?
Yeah, I mean, we have, hopefully you've seen, if not, feel free to check out our social media, an amazing new amphitheater. It is so beautiful, and it's big, and it's going to be a great spot on camp. And we can really spread out in different pods around that space, and kind of make it like almost like a concert in a way. So that's our plan, to make sure that we can be connected on Shabbat. Because when we say, I mean, I like to say physically distant rather than socially distant. You know, we're distant from each other physically, but we will be at camp, you know, together, and hear each other, and hear the songs, and be together on Shabbat. And that's really important for us, to keep that integrity of Shabbat.
Thank you. Can you speak a little bit about overnights, and if they're happening, and any trips outside of camp?
Yeah, so we unfortunately cannot do overnight trips this year. We're not going to be providing those. We are going to be doing some day trips that will be just within a cohort, and we'll be going to locations that are open spaces that don't have a lot of other people around. An example of that is like going on a hike with a group, or going on a beach trip.
Awesome. And then we've had a couple questions or a couple comments just about our guidelines, and maybe how there's some different kinds of information out there. I think it might be helpful if you maybe speak to a little bit of our process, and how where we pull our guidelines, and what we're basing it all off of.
Yeah, so we have, I'd say, you know, there's a lot of information out there, so I totally, you know, understand. And there are 3 main avenues we use. And so we have the Oregon Health Authority guidance. And then we have best practices that are given by the CDC, as well as the American Camp Association. So for the things that the Oregon Health Authority doesn't cover, we look to the best practices given by the CDC and by the American Camp Association to guide us. They guided us in the formation of these operations. And if you want to take a look at those, also on our website, before, when we start kind of our guidance, and we say, you know, this is our COVID-19 operations, we have links to all 3 of those. So you can actually look at them and see them yourself. You can also, you know, feel free to look on your own, because those are all public information. That is all public information.
So we have some questions about specifically percentage of times campers will spend in a mask. I'm assuming you might not know that number off the top of your head, but this parent is also saying that they would like to set clear expectations for their child. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the kind of resources we'll be able to give out leading up to camp on how to best prepare our campers.
Yeah, we can definitely think about that more and give kind of a, you know, a better estimate. But I would estimate, you know, we have maybe 3 different activity blocks that we typically do that are, you know, combined. So I'd say maybe, you know, 2 to 3 hours within a day might have masking. And you know that, and it's a hard estimate to give, but I would say that would be that's what I would say at this point. Thinking about that in comparison to say our day camps, where campers are, you know, masked the entire day, you know, it's way less than what we've done for any of our other day-long programs.
Great. Will there be Maccabiah this year?
Yes, of course. We have to have Maccabiah every year, but because we like to keep it a secret from the campers. But yes, we'll do Maccabiah. We will just do it in a kind of creative way where campers are competing for their teams in different spaces on camp.
Awesome. We have a couple family camp questions. One, is it sold out yet? And two, will testing be required prior to camp?
So family camp is actually full at this point. And we are not requiring testing prior to family camp. Family camp is going to look a little different if you've been to one in the past. Family camp is, each family is going to be in a cabin on their own and will be masked when they're around any other family. But we are full for that weekend at this point. And I also saw a question about Maccabiah, and so I would love to explain Maccabiah because I know we have some new families to camp. Maccabiah is where our whole camp splits into 4 team colors, and and they compete together throughout the day with all kinds of competitions. They do some athletic competitions and aquatics, and we do some arts and crafts and some performances. So it's kind of an all-day thing, and our teens at camp lead the day for us. So it's a very well-loved tradition at camp.
Great. Can you give some more detail on mask wearing and outside, specifically when outside campers will need to be in masks, 6 feet apart, or just all the details around that?
Yeah, so it's just going to be when they are combining with other cohorts. So that's going to be the times when they're going to have masks on. No matter if they're outside or inside at this point, it's that if they are coming within 6 feet of others or within a close to another group, they are going to be wearing masks.
Great. Will meals be indoors or outdoors?
So we're going to do a combination. There will definitely be a lot of outdoor eating. As we know, the coastal weather is not always great for outdoor eating, and in Oregon in general there could be rain, and in the morning it's a little bit dewy and wet. So we will also have indoor eating spaces that accommodate campers, but it will be in separate spots. So making sure that we have that distance between different groups of campers is going to be the priority for meals.
Okay, so it looks like our questions have slowed down. And if we didn't get to yours in the chat, we have this all saved and we'll get to you, contact you directly with an answer. It looks like one more just popped up. Are we expected to provide masks for our children? Are we going to be asked to provide a box of disposable masks? And are you going to keep track of kids wearing clean masks?
So we have on our packing list to bring masks, and of course, if any camper showed up to camp and forgot their mask, just like we do if a camper forgot a water bottle or something, we will be able to provide them with some disposable masks. So whatever your child is comfortable with, that's going to be really important. So whatever kind of mask your child is most comfortable with, I would send them with that and with a few extras of those, because we're running around and definitely there's a lot of activity at camp. And just like all of our articles of clothing, we always really ask that parents label their camper's name on all of their clothes, every single article of clothing. And so that would be the same thing. The same recommendation for masks is to label with a full name on your camper's masks.
Okay, and I spoke a little too soon. We keep having questions rolling in. If children are coming for less weeks, so let's say campers coming for 2 weeks as opposed to 3 weeks, will they be intermixing with cohorts that are there for longer periods of time?
Yes, so as long as we start our cohort with the same, we'll start with a group. A camper can leave early, they just won't be able to re-enter. So with our 2-week sessions, they will leave the group, and the cohort still stays stable because it's the same group that we've had since day one.
Questions from a future camper: what time is wake up time?
We start wake up at about 7:45 in the morning.
All right. Parents who are dropping their campers off at camp, are they allowed to walk around and see camp?
So no, we are going to be doing a screening process where you actually stay in the car during the drop-off process. So we'll be welcoming you and we'll say our goodbyes in the car, and then our staff members will help the campers bring their luggage down to their cabin. And we can't wait for you to be able to see camp at a later date when we're not doing drop off at a family camp, at a adult retreat, and all those other opportunities we have to see camp.
Great. We have a couple questions about if masks will be washed daily.
Masks will not be washed daily. This is why we suggest for campers to bring extra masks with them. And especially if they are disposable masks, we didn't write this on the packing list, but it could be a great idea. If we're doing disposable masks, then you would want to bring enough for probably multiple a day in case those are getting worn. And I know they tear sometimes when campers are maybe playing with them as well.
Great. If indoors with staff not from their cabin, will campers have to wear masks?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah. So if campers are indoors with staff that are not their counselors, so maybe floating staff or specialty area staff, will they need to be masked?
Yeah, so when they're doing the specialty staff that are outside of their cohort and we're indoors, we definitely will have everybody in a mask.
Does BB Camp have any staff that come just for the day? And if so, how will they be tested?
We don't have staff who come for the day. Anybody who does, who is coming, a vendor, anybody like that is going to need to be masked and completely distant from anyone they're with. And so they will not come within 6 feet of a camper, and will also have a mask on when they're on camp.
Okay, we have a question about 2 friends that are going in the same session, and will they be in the same cohort?
So you can get in contact with me if you have specific questions like that. We do bunk campers by age. So if they are the same grade and you put them in your bunk request, then they will be bunked together. If they are different grades, then definitely you'll want to contact me so we can talk about that specifically.
Okay, and it looks like some of the questions we've kind of gone around a little bit. So we'll like I said before, we'll be in contact, but we'll also stay on and be able to answer some questions. Yeah.
Yeah, you can feel free to unmute. I think I see some questions about meal times, and it's actually the recommendation, and what we're going to do is have different groups in different spaces on camp. So it's not going to be like all of the campers, just put out 6 feet apart within one big room. And so I don't want you to be picturing that. We're going to have the recommendation is 6 feet. We're going to have like 8 to 12 feet between tables, and it's not going to be very many groups in the same indoor space if there is when we have to do indoor eating.
Okay, and then where will bus pickups be in Portland?
I'm going to actually pass that to Allison to let us know.
Most likely 90% sure that it's going to be at our new offices on Beaverton Hillsdale Highway.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we have a question. Will there be individuals or just cohort and cabin activities?
So individuals is a great example of a time where it will be podded activities. So this is where we'll have masks, and we might be able to, within a pod, have some choices. And those activities will be masked and distanced. We won't be doing individuals where all of camp is doing that at the same time. And for those of you who don't know, individuals has previously been where campers can go all around camp and choose whatever activity they want to do. So we're just going to do that on a little bit of a smaller scale within pods.
Can you talk a little bit about capacity this year, and if BB Camp will be operating at full capacity?
Yeah, so the guidance actually did it by cohort and by our overall capacity in our with our entire property. And so we have within our cabins, we're going to probably have 12 to 15 campers, but we can have up to 20 campers in a cabin, and that is still in line with what the governor's office put out, which was actually 30 campers being together. So we definitely limit it to 20.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna be bold and unmute, but not unvideo myself. Can I do that?
Yes, you're cutting out a little bit, but
Unvideo myself too.
hi, Scott.
I asked a question in the chat. It was not clear. So I'm gonna change it. Hi. Am I coming through okay?
God, I'm so sorry. We can't hear you very well at all.
I just scrolled up and found Scott's question.
I'm gonna put myself. This is a crappy computer. Are you guys able to hear me okay?
We still can't hear you very well. I'm so sorry, but it sounds like we found your question around transportation. Go ahead, Chanel.
Yes, but how will the bus spacing work from Portland to camp, or really anywhere from camp?
Yeah, so on the bus, it's going to be one camper per seat. Unless they're siblings, they can sit together, and then we'll be masked for the bus ride and have ventilation, have windows open for the duration of the bus ride.
Allison, we have a question about the bus pickup in Southern Oregon, and it might be helpful to kind of maybe go over or maybe share where parents will be notified where that is, where they can get that information.
Sure. So first of all, you'll select that you want your camper to ride the Southern Oregon bus when you're in your transportation form, and in there there'll be a variety of cities. And so you check the one that's closest to you, and then we will, it kind of depends on how many campers we have from where, what sort of a pickup. So what we do is we take sort of your input and then create the schedule based on that. And you can email me or message me directly and we can work out that as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Allison. So Beth, we have a good question from Jennifer. I'm just going to read it out to you. I assume that there is some awareness that kids' social skills might be a bit off since they haven't interacted in person and many others for over a year. Will your counselors get some training on how to re-engage with kids with really bad social skills?
Absolutely. And, this is huge. Always in our training, we talk a lot about social skills, and even more so this year and what this year has brought. In addition to that, we're going to do a lot of training around, how do we talk about what just happened, what is happening with COVID-19, and how do we share that information with our campers, how interactions might feel different when we first start. So there's just so much training around that. So yes, absolutely.
And I want to add on, in addition, we are actually actively recruiting and in a process of hiring a community care and inclusion director, which with very high level skills. So in addition to our counselors and our staff, that are working every day with kids, we'll have somebody high level on camp to help with those, any of the issues that come up.
Great. And then Allison, I'm going to bring it back to you. Is there a thought of a bus from Seattle?
Yes, we will still be doing busing from Seattle.
Great.
It's still an option. Select it on your transportation form.
Okay. Thank you, Allison.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. It looks like we've ended our question period. As always, please feel free to be in touch with us if you have any questions about camp. And really, we're grateful that you're here and that you're engaging with this and having these conversations with us. And yeah, we hope that we answered all your questions. And yeah, thank you. You'll get a follow-up email from us with this all written out and everything. So thank you all. Good to see you. Say hi to your children for us. Can't wait to see them.
Thank you all for joining us. It's been so nice to see you all. And if anyone has any specific questions, please hang on. We're happy to help.
We have a very nice comment in the chat saying, I think friendships are going to be even closer this year. We agree.
I agree. Really do.
Hey guys, sorry, Jen Barth, I had to cut out for part of it. It looks like an action-packed call. I really appreciate it. I'm scanning the comments really quick. The dates are all the same, right? Nothing changed on that front?
Correct.
Yep, it's all the same.
Thank you so much. My kids are going to be thrilled to hear these updates, and thanks for all you guys are doing. It's amazing.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you,
Do the
Jen.
golden hook for us.
Take care.
All right, bye, honey.
Okay, bye. Okay.
Other questions anyone has? Anyone want to unmute? Did Noam leave? Noam, do we get to see the baby again? Are you still there? There's no future camper.
He's sleeping now, though.
Nobody's so cute.
Oh.
Yeah, with daddy.
Great.
Oh, so cute.
Yes. Great.
When he was awake, he was turning around for Beth's voice. So.
So
See
nice.
sweat. Yeah. Nice. Okay, well, I think we will end the call here then if no one has any more questions. Thanks for coming, everybody. And I guess we will be in contact soon. See you soon.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.